All right, so here we go with the latest edition of Anthony's Zoom podcast thingy that he just gets out there. I'm going to bring on Earl Kemper. We're going to go through a letter, the letter I, and how the letter I, we can do all kinds of different things with it, the way that we think about our life. And so I'm excited to bring him on. Earl and I have known each other for a very long time, since I was 7. Grew up with his family. We've intertwined our lives. He's a master coach. I'm a business coach. And so we just had a good time talking. And so I'm going to bring this to everybody or whoever listens to this, all one or two or 18 of you that will listen to this because it will be helpful. And so I hope it adds value to your day. So enjoy the listen. All right, Earl. Well, thanks for taking some time this afternoon. We had an appointment canceled that we were going to be on. And so I'm like, hey, you were sharing this idea with me earlier today about these letters, specifically I, and went through a thing with me. I got super excited about that. And just so everybody knows, like Earl and I have known each other for a very long time since I was 7. I'm now 44. So we've been interconnected and intertwined for a very long time. Earl and I have the same passion for helping people. So I'll just let Earl talk about himself, and then we'll get into a little bit about his 422,000 different acronyms that he has for the way he says things, but they're all geared towards helping people. So, Earl, share about yourself and why you love to help people.
Thanks, Anthony. As always, it's great to spend any time with you, buddy. So, Anthony and I do go back a long time, and we've known each other forever. And I think that one of the things that is really binds us is that we have the same kind of belief system. One of the things that I always look at in people, as you talk about people in general, is what can we do to help them reach their potential?
Yeah.
And so where I start with that is, first of all, I've been coaching for like 38 years. I've been working with all different kinds of businesses in that time frame. And ultimately, probably my greatest coaching opportunities have been with my family. A little less with my wife, as we talk about a
Yes.
lot off and on. That's probably
Yes.
not the best person for any of us to coach.
That's right.
But my wife and I have been married for 44 years. And as a result of that, we have 4 children. We have 17 grandchildren, and we have 2 great grandchildren. And so I'm a big believer in recognizing who I need to be in all the different areas of my life. I seek first to be a man of God. I seek first to be a Christian, if you will. And in doing so, that really drives everything in who I am, because my identity, and that's the first letter that I always like to talk about with I's, is my identity first and foremost is in Christ. My next part of my identity is that I am a husband of a beautiful wife. And then I am a father. I am a great grandfather, and believe it or not, at 64, I'm also a great grandfather. So that's a big part of the identity that I recognize I am, if you will, on the surface.
Yeah.
But what really becomes important about identity, that letter that we'll start with of I in our conversation today, is that we all have the opportunity to look at what our identity is in our relationships with people, in our business lives, and in the things that we do that really make an impact in our communities in the world. And so one of the first things is to recognize that your identity absolutely drives the limit to your success, your finances, and the relationships that you develop. And so that identity, we put it in the framework of freedom, finances, and fulfillment. What is it that you want your identity to be when it comes to your finances? What do you want your identity to be when it comes to freedom? and what do you want your identity to be when it comes to fulfillment in your life. And when you get real clear about your identity, then you're getting clear in your thoughts, you're getting clear in your concepts, and you're getting clear in your beliefs. And one of the things Anthony and I talk about all the time is the importance of clarity. And if you don't have clarity, you probably are having a challenge with really understanding your own identity. You know, who are you and why do you do what you do really impacts your identity in a dramatic way. What we perceive about ourselves is what we believe about ourselves. And so when you look in the mirror, when you hear your voice, what is it reminds you that you are? Who are you and what is it you represent every day in what you do? So that to me is identity. And so when I think about that with Anthony, I think it's always cool to talk about, you know, what do you see when you think about your identity?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with the way that I approach it, and I've talked to you about this, and I talk to everybody about it, is our identity becomes, you've said this before, like our identity is almost a mirror of our beliefs, right? And then our beliefs come from, it may be what we watch, what we listen to, who we hang out with, how we were raised, what education that we had, and that's where our belief structure is. And so for me, who do I believe I am and my identity? I've become somebody different than I ever have been. And I would say that I'm always becoming someone new because I'm constantly learning and recreating that identity. But like you, I'm anchored in my faith. Like I'm definitely anchored there because when all else fails, I go back to that. And as long as I know who I am and why I'm here and what I'm supposed to do, and I stay on that pipeline, I have 100% confidence. Matter of fact, when I first discovered, I would say my true identity was probably, I don't even know how many years ago, let's say 9 or 10 years ago. I was the guy that was walking into the room, super paranoid, didn't know what to say, how to say it, was worried about what everybody thought about me. And I had not yet discovered who I was and why I was here to help other people. And so part of my identity discovery process was learning my gifts. So I've learned since then, my gifts are like gifts of learning, gifts of building into other people, gifts of wisdom and knowledge through a lot of different of these assessments that I've taken. They all say the same thing. And as long as I'm living into those gifts, into that identity on why I was here, gone is the anxiety that I used to have walking to a room or talking to people or the fear of judgment. So, I mean, that's my identity in a nutshell. And I truly do feel, as running this morning, I truly do feel like I could do anything. Like I just feel like that. Like any situation you put me into, I'll figure it out and I can do it. That doesn't mean that it's true. It just means that's who I believe I am, is somebody that can figure whatever out at any point in time with any circumstance. So yeah.
Yeah, and so when you truly understand your identity, it enables you to have gratitude for who you are and where you're going in your life. When you truly understand what your identity is about, it also gives you confidence to take on things that are outside of your comfort zone, things that you have to really stretch yourself to accomplish. With that identity, I go into the next I, is that you have to have intentionality or intention.
Yes.
So important if you're going to be focused on who you've decided to be intentional in every aspect of what that looks like. So
Yeah.
when you have your identity, you must see it as it is to be. It may not be
Right.
there yet, but as it is to be. So it becomes
Right.
your intention for your life. I found years ago the opportunity to use affirmations, I am statements. And for me, it has always been helpful to take an I am statement and break it down into an acronym. Imagine
Yes.
that. And
Right.
for me, that acronym is I is for intention, A is for attention to the intention, and with intention and attention brings about manifestation.
Right.
And so you have to begin with intention and intentionality in every aspect of your life. You
Right.
talk often about the importance of the beginning of your day because it intentionally gets you moving towards what you've decided as your identity.
Right.
You cannot just expect something to happen in your life. You have to have an intentional approach to whatever it is you decide for your life. And so,
Yeah.
whether that's being a really strong business owner, entrepreneur, a father, um, a husband, a great grandfather, a grandfather, um, a client of someone's, a friend of someone's, whatever that identity is, you have to be intentional about being present in those relationships. So you might share a little bit of what goes in your mind when you think of intentionality.
Sure. So I call it the king of my calendar. And so for me, my calendar is a reflection of what you and I work with people on. And a lot of people do this life category wheel. So when I start working with somebody or even myself, I'll fill out my life category wheel on an annual and semi-annual basis. Then what I do is, because that is who I want to be as a role of a father, who I want to be as a husband, who I want to be as a professional, and that's the identity that I have in there. Well, then I am intentional about putting the activities on my calendar that will create that person, right? Or I will act as if I'm that person if those things are on my calendar. So, what people fail to do, and I've shared this before with other people, is like typically when I was a financial planner years ago, is that I would ask people what they were spending their money on, and they'd say, "Oh, we don't have any money." I would say, "Show me your bank statements," and then they would be like embarrassed to show me their bank statements that they were spending money on all kinds of stuff when they would tell me they don't have any money. Just in the same way that people say they don't have money, they'll tell me they're too busy and they don't have time. In reality, time is the most valuable resource and asset that we all have, because once it's spent, it'll never get back. And so, what we have to do is we have to be intentional with our time, even more so than our money. And if we're intentional with our time, then we can calendar it out. We can write out specifically the action steps that we want to take with that. So that's how I'm intentional with my day. And I teach people the same thing. It's taken me a long time to build that intention with each different thing. But when I teach people to do it, biggest thing is, and you told me this about 6 years ago, is you said, Anthony, you have to slow down in order to speed up. And so that was a major focus, is I actually take that time weekly to slow down, look at my calendar, look at my intentions to see if my who that I said I wanted to be matches up with my action plan or my intentions during the week that's on my calendar.
And it really helps to also connect to your calendar the I am statements, the affirmations, so that you can verbalize. And also, it's very good to visualize what the outcome of that intention that you put in place is. So if I
Right.
have this intention, but I never put attention to it, nothing ever gets implemented.
Right.
And so for me, the key of an identity coming to be really who you choose to be is you go from identity to intention, but you must then actually move right into implementation of whatever you set out to do. So we
Right.
can decide, we can choose, and we have good intention. But until such time we are in the state of implementation, virtually nothing happens in our lives. So
Right.
it comes back to our our beliefs generally impact all the questions that we ask, and it usually will impact the decisions that we make. But if there's no action or implementation, if you will, nothing
Right.
really changes. And you
Right.
and I have coached, lots of people in our lives. And in coaching people, what we recognize is people many times start down the path with a good choice, a great decision, but they never implement it because they're not willing to really sacrifice who they are for who they want to be.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just keep being the same person that they were. Therefore, they have the old identity, not the new one that they really want.
Yeah, there's a quote I came across and I posted it a couple days ago is if you do not sacrifice for what you want will become the sacrifice.
Yeah, very well said.
Mm-hmm.
So, implementation, for me, wherever you are, compared to wherever you want to go, there's always gaps.
Right.
If you're growing and you want to grow, there's always gaps. And for me, that's another acronym. I think of implementation about you got to set goals, you got to develop a strategy, the opposite end of the word gaps. You
Right.
got to have a plan, and you got to have action and accountability.
Right.
So implementation involves moving from where you are to where you want to go and filling those gaps. And so when you set out to change, here's something that is not where you would like it to be. What are the steps you take in implementation to make change?
The first thing I identify is like what you said, what's the goal? Second thing that I do is I put a date on my calendar to start of whatever that is, and I actually will specifically schedule what I'm doing. So, for example, if we want to look at health wise here recently, I had been preparing at the beginning of the year for a ultra marathon. And so I did that. Well, then I went back into more of lifting weights. Well, I didn't just go right back into lifting weights hardcore. What I did was is first I did 3 days of slightly working out, but I had it on my calendar. And I said, for this 30 days, I'm doing this. And then I added more days doing this. But I wrote it out first by hand. Then what I do is after I write it out by hand, I sketch it out, is I add it to my calendar. So I don't try to go from here to there overnight. What I do is I create, and you and I talk about this a lot, I create 1% wins. And that's my main focus because I'm not in a contest with anybody else. I'm in a contest with the me that wants to sleep in and the me that wants to get more healthy. I'm in the contest with me like excuses. I'm tired and I don't feel well and I have a headache with the person that says if I don't show up to the gym or I don't show up for my run and I base what I'm going to do on how I feel, how am I going to lead all the people I coach if I don't show up, I don't do my routine, I don't put in the mental stuff that I put in before and after and during the gym in order to build into other people. So not only do I just implement a step-by-step process incrementally, is I attach it to an overall meaning to where if I don't do it, who's going to suffer? Because it's not just me.
Yeah, so again, if we look at what we've talked about, we're working to put in place the identity we desire. We do that with intentionality. We make sure through that intentionality that we implement, and then we focus on improvement. And as you're talking about implementing and focusing on that improvement, you mentioned the idea of improvement 1% a day, or Kaizen, constant and never ending improvement.
Right.
So we don't just implement for the state of going through the motions of implementation. we actually move that implementation into something that enables us to improve.
Right.
That involves really working on ourselves individually to
Uh-huh.
become the best person we can be based on the identity that we choose.
That's right.
So the question becomes then, is there a comparative to improve,
Hmm.
right? If we look at it and we say, in each area of our life, can we rank ourselves compared to the identity we desire on a scale of 1 to 10?
Right.
And if we look at it and we come up with some threes and fours and fives, can we see what we have to do to move it towards that constant, never ending improvement, 1%, move it towards a 4 to get to a 10 at some point in the future of what our identity is.
Right.
So, how important is it to measure improvement?
It's extremely important because it goes on that one of those books from a long time ago, but it said what is measured can be managed, and what is managed can be improved. So people will tell me that they're not either getting results in their financial life or their business life or their health life, but they're not tracking anything. And so I always ask them like, how can you expect to get better if you don't know what's working or not working? Right. So we've come across that just as we've been coaching businesses is, many times we find out they're not tracking what I call like lagging indicators, like what are the results, but then also like the current indicators. And those are the things that get us to those lagging results, and they don't track them because if we don't, and this is another phrase that people say, we inspect what we want to expect,
Right.
right? And it's highly important that we do that because along the way, I heard this the other day, is that a plane leaving from like Honolulu, flying to California, like San Diego, it is wrong in its path 90% of the time.
Right.
But it constantly makes adjustments because it knows what the goal is. But they have measurements, they have instruments that are measuring their progress as they're flying. If they did not pay attention to those instruments, what would happen is they would end up in Texas,
Right.
right? So they have to measure their progress on a current basis to tell them if they're on course to hit their goal. So that's how important it is.
Yeah. And when you look at it from a standpoint of just identifying what it is you want in your life and you strive for it, the biggest challenge that many people run into is they want to try to go from 0 to 100 like that.
Yeah,
And the problem with that is that it's not doable. And so they are already defeated
correct.
here. And if you're defeated here, everything else is pretty much in trouble. So, one of the things we talk about as a really key point of improvement is you will always face challenge when you try to improve. You will
Absolutely.
always face challenge. So, the question is, how do you turn a challenge into an opportunity for growth and improvement?
Right.
So I always love to hear your story about really getting into a situation where you were challenged in your life and you turned it into an opportunity. And I too have had those experiences in my life.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, professional life, it has been where just during COVID, I mean, when you and I were working with these dental practices, and it was a time where there was a lot of freaked out people, and we just dug in with people, and we didn't do our 90-day plans. It was like 2-day plans, 5-day plans, 7-day plans, 11-day plans. However, we just kept on navigating. We kept on making course corrections. And what we did is, because a lot of other dental practices shut down because they didn't know what to do. Maybe they weren't working with a coach, or maybe they panicked. Is when we were working with our clients, they actually rose to the occasion, and they were able to increase their overall collections in 2020 by an average of 20% over the previous year, right? So that's one. My wife and I owned some businesses in 2020. We actually tripled our overall business, tripled it, right, during 2020. So we took what we did is we could not serve our clients inside of our business anymore. So what did we do? We did curbside. It was freezing cold during curbside. We had fun with it. We started doing deliveries. We found different ways to create growth. And because we did deliveries, which we'd never done before, and we were able to drop them off at hospitals and different places, is that because the social media exposure is the reason why we tripled our overall revenue that year in growth, because now everybody was seeing what we were doing for the community, and that would not have happened if we wouldn't have done those deliveries. Personally, like health wise, overcoming a challenge is the first time. This is an example, but the first time that I had sciatica, and you know this, you even caught me one time. But I have a trick back, right? If I have to baby that sucker, and even though I stay as active as I do, this one time I had sciatica, and that's a big challenge. I had it for it was lingering for 18 months. At the very onset of it, when it was really really bad, my 1% every day is I never stopped getting up. So my alarm was set to go off at 4 o'clock in the morning. With sciatica, I crawled out of bed. The pain was so bad that I almost blacked out, almost threw up a couple times. But I remained consistent in my pattern to get up. I'd crawl over to the couch, and all I would do for that 1% improvement, all I would do was watch recovery videos on YouTube from sciatica. That's all I would do. I would lay on my back with my feet on the couch and watch recovery videos for almost 2 weeks. Right? So what did that challenge turn into opportunity? I started posting my journey on sciatica. I can't even tell you how many people I helped out with sciatica pain, back pain, and all this stuff, because I journaled it, and then I journeyed it on like Facebook and social media. And because of that, I took my challenge, took it as an opportunity to help a lot of people with their back pain and their sciatica pain. So yeah, there's three different examples.
Yeah, in my world in 2008, we were coaching 41 different offices, and 36 of them doubled because we decided not to look at things as a challenge. We looked at them as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 5 people decided to get stuck in the challenge, but 36 people decided to do more. Whatever it took, we did more. We did more marketing, even though the financial situation may have been one where it looked like you should be doing less marketing. We did more
Right.
hiring. We did more opportunities to get in front of people and really talk to them about our service and selling a higher percentage. So all of those things are impactors. It begins with a mindset of, do I just give up, or do
Mm-hmm.
I see things from a state of really gratitude for where I am, belief in where I could be, and faith in the ability to get there, and trusting in the Lord to get me there, the optimism of the future, and then ultimately to persevere. No matter what, you persevere. The second example really that comes to my mind in business was, had a business in December that was valued at $4 million. We worked with them 6 months, and we were able to get for them $11 million. And that was right at the time during the COVID period, the pandemic. And then, just personally having friends and workers that were clients that went through difficult times. A lot of deaths in my family, a lot of deaths of friends during the pandemic, and finding out that my wife had leukemia. Overcoming those challenges is a big reason that you can continue to improve at 1% a day. It isn't about your circumstance. It isn't about your events that you go through. It is literally how you respond to them. And your example is about how you respond to improve. My
Yeah.
example is how everyone can. And the reason I bring that up is that what we have the ability to do through that is influence people.
Right.
So my next I after identity, intention, implementation, and working through improvement is the idea of influence.
Hmm.
Now, John Maxwell tells us influence and leadership are synonymous. So when you think about the whole idea of influencing people, what goes through your mind? You have a role and a responsibility. I have a role and responsibility that every day involves influencing people. So when you think about the importance of that and how seriously you take it, what goes through your mind?
Well, I take it very serious. There was a guy that asked me at the gym the other day. He said, "So you work out and then you go run and then you stretch." He's like, "You're working out for like 3 hours." I said, "Nah, not really." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Because that entire time I am listening to personal and professional development." And he's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, during my workout, I listen to this kind of personal and professional development. When I run, I'm not really running, I'm just moving, just outside. I love being outside, and I'm listening to an Audible book. And then when I'm stretching, I'm listening to a podcast." So I have a very specific way that I move through things. And the reason why I have to do that is because of the people that I'm going to serve and influence throughout the day. If I don't put those things in my head and in my heart, there are all kinds of circumstances I would not have been able to help people through if I didn't first ingest them. Now, again, you go back to identity and my giftedness in learning, I can learn at a ridiculously rapid rate. So I don't need all my clients and all the people I'm connected to take in as much content as I take in, because that's probably not their gift. So I take my gift with intention and I take it with influence, and I'm able to serve them to my max capacity. So that's why I take my morning plan so serious, because if I don't do that, then I won't properly, for my potential, be able to influence somebody else.
Yeah, and so what you're talking about is the importance of the investment of time and money towards being able to move towards your absolute identity, who you choose to be. And so influence comes either voluntarily or involuntarily. If
Right.
you choose to let whatever it is come into your mind that can come into your mind, it will impact how you influence others.
Oh, absolutely.
But as you really focus your attention on the right things and intentionally are doing the things associated with what you learn, you influence others.
Yeah.
And the power of that is people go through challenges themselves, and then we have an opportunity to turn their challenges into their opportunities because we can influence them based on what it is that we have learned,
Right.
what we believe. So between your podcasts and YouTubes and audio books and Kindle and highlighting and all those things,
Uh-huh.
and mine as well, as you know, that's something I've been doing for many, many years, is that it is constantly changing the way that we see things, constantly changing how we move towards our identity intentionally.
Yeah.
When we can influence others, it really is what makes us live out our identity is the ability to influence others positively.
Absolutely. Yep.
So the other thing is when we can influence others very positively, we make a big impact. And
Yes.
so Your identity is, in fact, to make a big impact on people. What is there tied to your vision or your mission around impacting the people you interact with and the numbers you want to interact with?
So I have I always tell people that I passionately pursue people on purpose for a purpose. And what I find is that because of the way that we've grown up most of the time, is that most of us have broken filters, dirty filters. Most of us have been told what we are not or what we lack, and then the world, as we grow up, continues to tell us what we're not and what we lack. Just look at your regular marketing on TV. It is done on purpose to make you feel like you're not something, so you go buy something, right? So we're constantly in a world that tells us what we're not. And what I want people to do, if you will, it's like the Matrix, right? Matrix to me isn't a movie, it's a documentary, where it's the red pill versus the blue pill. I want to serve as that Morpheus of that person that gives somebody the opportunity to either live the life that they currently still are living, or with the blue pill or the red pill that they take in. And what I was, just like he says, is like, I can't guarantee that this is going to be a good ride. Paraphrasing, he says, I can only guarantee that you're going to see the truth for the first time. And so I want people to wake up and be aware and become untrapped, right? Or become because they have been trapped. And I can't stand that. I can't stand that people are blind and they don't know it, right? So I have a passionate pursuit of people that wants to unlock people, to unleash them so they can live an unhindered life. That's my passion. And I want to do it in a big way. So it doesn't mean, I don't know what it means. I've told you that before. It might mean on stage, it might mean on YouTube, it might mean in a podcast, it might mean whatever it means. I just know that as long as I keep on pursuing that, the next three steps will show up with how I'm supposed to move.
Yeah, I love it when Zig Ziglar talks about if you help enough people get what they want, that you get what you want.
That's right.
And I always think about it from his impact. I mean, what an amazing impact he made on the world with his ability to share. And so when I see that and I think about what we can do to make a difference in people's lives, when we can really connect our passion and our purpose, and we can do the things we do with excellence and efficiency, we can have a maximum impact on others through the influence that we have in our lives. And
Right.
then it kind of goes full circle in that when you talk in terms of an identity, remember, we want to have an ideal picture of what our life looks like in our identity. And then when we have achieved our goals or our dreams, or we've achieved the ability to help others accomplish their goals and their dreams, the power of that is amazing, because we now have accomplished our identity, our ideal life. So
That's right.
when you visualize your ideal life, if you were, and I always like asking this question, if you were in that position mentally where you could see the future,
Mm-hmm.
and you knew that you were going to leave this world, however that was intended 10 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the ideal that would have represented your identity 10 years from now? And how would you express it in a reasonably short number of words?
Sure. What I would have done is I would have created an environment that allowed people to express their creativity inside themselves in different environments, whether it's on mountaintops, Grand Canyons, to be able to be away from all the distractions of the media and the news, to actually take them to exhaustion, to break them down, to get them to experience who their true self is, and build a team of people that also want to take people in that down that road. because I truly believe that when we can get people away from their everyday life, that they will truly start to discover without distraction who they can be and rewrite their story. So I would hope that I create then when it's my time to go, that I've created a bunch more authors that have rewritten their story and designed their book the way they want to live it, as opposed to living as a character in somebody else's book.
So when we look at that and we say that's your ideal, and I'm sure with more time you could even get more in depth in that, but it comes back to when you know what that ideal is, you're able to really get clear about your identity. You're
Mm-hmm.
able to then take that identity and be intentional with it. You're able to not
Right.
only be intentional with it, but now you can implement the things that move you towards that ideal. And
Right.
as you implement the things that you need to, you improve. And as you are in constant and never ending improvement, 1% a day, you are influencing everyone around you in
Right.
a positive way that makes a major impact in the world in which you live and the people in which you serve.
Right.
And ultimately, you have accomplished your ideal. And
Yeah.
so I share those eyes with you in that way today, Anthony, for you and I to think together about how we can make a difference in people's lives with all the things we learn, but maybe put it in a way that they can just think it through, see it themselves, believe it, and maybe move towards their ideal
Yeah.
in their
Well,
identity.
yeah, and I truly do love that. And I mean, in today's distracted world, with all the things that they can be paying attention to on a regular basis, is the TV, the 4.5 hours of streaming, the social media, is we tend to create an identity around our environment and the things we see and pay attention to. That our true education didn't stop when we left school, but that we've actually been educating ourselves without realizing it. And so when we educate ourselves around the things that we're reading, watching, listening to, and all that kind of stuff, is we form our identity based upon that stuff. And it tends to be a broken identity. And I have a big passion for the anxiety and depression. And in the United States, where medication is crazy about that stuff, is I've had relationships with many therapists that say, man, if we could just get people to quit paying attention to all these things that tell them what they're not, that would make a huge difference. And so that's why, when you brought up identity and started talking to me this morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, like we should get this on this video, because of how important identity is, and thinking about our identity, because most people don't ever think about it. And then when they finally do, it's called a what? A midlife crisis. Because now they don't want to live the life that they did live, and they want to live a different life, but they've never thought about it. And so I think this video can be this video can be an opportunity for people to actually say, I've never taken time to identify my identity. Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? Who do I want to be as a professional, as a father, as a mother, as a friend, and get very specific on that. So I think this would be a great exercise for people to take 30 minutes to an hour through and just write out who do they want to be, and then what their intention is, and go through these eyes. It'd be really neat to see. So
What's really cool is you've seen me in my life for many years and what's developed over time. I've seen you in your life for many years. So it's not like you and I are looking at this and in theory. We're
right.
looking at this as what we live in our lives and how we approach our lives. And what I think really can take away from this is that we continue personally to need to follow these same processes every day,
Absolutely.
move from
Absolutely.
that identity to ideal and all the steps. And then we make the greatest impact we can on the people that we serve.
Yep. Yeah. Robin Sharma, I just got done listening to one of his videos, and he was talking about it's like 5 keys to mastery of something, but he was going into, and his very last thing was maintain the lunchbox mentality, which
Yeah.
means you have to go to work on yourself every single day. And anytime that you think you've arrived, you have to start back over again. So always maintain that lunchbox active mindset. And I think you and I do that is we've never arrived, but we're always arriving.
Yeah, that's well said. That's well said. Well, this has been fun, man. I
All
really
right.
enjoyed it.
All right. Well, we'll see you soon.
All righty. Take care.
Bye.